I'm Robin. I'm a director at Bookster, and this is Lyle, who's the art director, and is responsible for building our client websites. Yeah, we thought we'd do a bit of a webinar on what we've learned about building holiday rental websites, and some of the mistakes we've made, and some of the things we've learned along the way. So yeah, I'll mainly hand you over to Lyle, and I'll probably pitch in every so often as well. So yeah, Lyle,
cool.
On you go.
Thanks, Robin. And just another thing to note, there's the chat there to the side, so you can pop your questions in. We'll likely get to them at the end, but feel free to add them anytime. And also down below, you can add your questions. So we'll address those at the end. Yeah, as Robin mentioned, I'm Lyle. I'm the art director at Bookster, and I'm responsible for designing and building a lot of our websites, as well as the design of our product. So yeah, we just thought we'd share some of our insights with you. Totally aware that you might know a lot of this. We'll be covering some basics. We'll be covering some sort of niche things that we've learned, but hopefully it's useful. So yeah, we'll just get started. So a little bit about us first. We're from Bookster, which is a property management system, booking system, and channel manager. So really our product is designed for holiday rental managers. That's what our tools are built for. And specifically in the self-catering niche, in the self-catering holidays, we don't really design our tools for hotels or that sort of things. It's really just for self-catering properties. We've been in the game for 10 plus years, and we've built websites and have clients that are small, medium, and large businesses. So the first thing we wanted to touch on today, a main thing that we've learned is to think about conversion when you're building your website. And conversion, in short, is the number of visitors you get to your website versus the number of transactions you have coming out of your website. So that's where you get your conversion rate, as most of you will likely know. What we've learned is that even though you might build your websites to be visually stunning, and that might be actually a lot of the dialogue you have with your client when you're setting up your website, over time, eventually, that website will also be measured not only by how it looks, but how it performs. And the return on investment is part of that, and the conversion rate is a major part of that. So even though the initial conversations might lean toward that, it's good to have that mindset early on in the process.
Yeah, that conversation about, you know, the return on investment, the bookings that have come through your website, even though you might not have that conversation with them right at the start, obviously they're interested in you know, the way that it looks, the way it's laid out, etc. Our experience would tell us that, you know, sometime down the road, about a year perhaps after you've built the site, they'll turn around and say, well, so you know, why am I not getting any bookings? Where are the bookings coming from? Why is this not giving me the money? So yeah, that conversation is coming, basically.
That's right. And I think, you know, part of that is, you know, we've learned too that there's a lot of tools out there that allow your clients to build their own website, you know, like Wix and these other ones. And some of them are free, some of them cost very little, and they don't require anyone like us and our skill set to build them a website. So what the value we really offer them is our expertise and our knowledge, and the knowledge to help them improve that website and that product, and, you know, get more traffic, convert more traffic into bookings. Those are the things that we really offer. And over time, we've learned that that's really the value we bring to our clients, more so than just the simple act of designing and building the website. It's about building all of our insights into that as we go. Another thing we've learned is that there's a big difference between instant bookings versus inquiries. And this is about the user journey. So, you know, what's easy for the user, an instant booking is something that they can do on their own. They can achieve that themselves if they're so inclined. Whereas taking an inquiry is another user journey. And that might mean that they go to their website, they've done research, they know where they're going to stay on their holiday. They arrive there, they love the product, they love the photographs, it ticks all of the boxes. And when they go to make that final step, that transaction, it's an inquiry form, and then that form goes off to the owner, and then that owner takes 2 days to respond, and then it's just a different process, and that can really hurt the conversion of the site. So we really encourage And we've learned to encourage our clients to use instant booking, because the reality is you spend all that effort getting the guest to the website, and to lose them over that sort of process is difficult, especially when Airbnb, Booking.com, your competitor next door have instant booking. So that's another way to hurt the conversion rate in a really simple way. So we encourage instant booking. On you go, Robin.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there is sometimes a tension that your client might want to vet guests, or to they might think that they're adding value by having a conversation with the client, which they might be in some contexts. But you really want to allow the guest to be able to book immediately, because as Lyle was saying, yeah, if people disappear off to another platform where instant booking is available, they might just go ahead and just do it. So you need to be able to offer that, and it's trying to explain to your client essentially that by setting up this backwards and forwards, they're potentially missing out on that conversion. But also that if someone books, you can put things into the terms and conditions. You can set up various things that allows the person to book. They can be vetted later, and that booking can be potentially maybe cancelled in the future. So you want to get them through the door before you vet them. And if they're having a stag do and you've said specifically you don't want that, you can actually cancel it later. But having instant book on the website is really important.
That's right. The next thing, to that point, is that we've learned that direct bookings are far more valuable to our clients than the bookings that they receive through what we call OTAs, or online travel agents like Booking.com, Airbnb, TripAdvisor, because they pay a commission for each of those bookings. Whereas on their own website, they don't pay that commission. They have better control of the terms and conditions. So those are really valuable. So, encouraging them to invest in their website it's really valuable. It does pay off. There is a return on investment. So that's one thing that sometimes we just need to remind our clients or educate them a little bit about the wins that can be made in their own marketing funnel that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, moving on here, this is a simple one, and I think any web designers in the room will know this one, but you want to avoid designing without content. So, I won't dwell on this too long, but, design enhances content. Design isn't content. So encouraging your client to write some of their content before you start designing the site, before you start building the site, so they can understand the process. You can understand what's their unique selling point, what they're trying to do, how they're trying to position themselves. That's all massively important to create an effective product. And what it also can do is potentially highlight some weak points in that narrative. If they haven't written any of that content, if they hadn't thought through what they want to say and what they want their angle to be, it kind of throws that up early in the process, and it allows you and your client to, collaborate and engage together and come up with that a narrative together and create that content together. So, in an ideal world, the client comes to us and they've got 20 documents and they know exactly what they're saying. They've drafted all the content, but that doesn't always happen. And it's just important to encourage the client to do that ahead of time and engage them to do that. The next one is designing again, but it's the old adage of less is more. This we found to be really true on our websites, and the culling process has made them far more effective over time. So one of the things we encourage our clients to do is to reduce choices, to simplify where possible. Again, it's all about that ideal user journey of someone arriving, looking at the products, seeing the availability, making sure it's for them, and then making a purchase. That's what we want it to do, and we want to have as few clicks along that way and as few choices along that way as we can to speed up that process. So reducing those choices is difficult, but a really worthwhile thing.
Yeah, I think the sort of classic thing that we find in when we're speaking to our clients is that so typically our clients are holiday agents, they have owners, and they have guests. So those are the two sort of their people that they're dealing with. They're dealing with the guests to take the bookings, but they're dealing with their owners to try and get more properties onto their website, and they're dealing with owners who are asking them about number of bookings and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the time you might find that they want to put things onto their website that are about owners. So they might want an owner section quite prominent, or you know, and they might want to give it as much prominence as they would sort of more guest focused things. And you know, what we have found is that it can take a little while for us to go, look, your website is basically 95% of the time is aimed at guests. You have to reduce that other clutter that is about attracting new owners, make it really small, put it in the footer. Owners will probably dig around and find that stuff, whereas guests are much more flighty. They're much more likely to come in, not see what they want, and just disappear again. And so your whole focus of your site should be around doing an availability search, or finding the property, or booking the property. Basically, that's the journey. And so all the other choices around, you know, maybe a blog or owner section or contact us should all be, you know, relegated out as much as possible. And that primary booking journey should be the thing that you're wanting to promote.
That's right. And we've actually gone through, you know, testing cycles with our clients where we've taken their homepage navigation and we've reduced it to 1 or 2 items, and found that increases the conversion rate on the site. So, you know, it does work, and it does simplify, you know, and it does make it easier for the guests to understand when they arrive what's being sold to them, you know, what the message is. If this is a holiday rental website, or if this is a website to purchase properties, for instance, you want to make that as clear as possible. You know, some of the design chat too, you know, using white space. So using white space around the elements that you want people to focus on helps them be a focal point. Making sure there's contrast and color on your buttons, drawing the eye to the key actions, the key user journey. Using balance and, you know, consistency to kind of make elements match each other that need to, and make other elements stand out in contrast. So these are, you know, simple design principles that we found to be really effective tools in laying out our websites. Another point is that we found that users rely heavily on the conventions that they know, and this is true with e-commerce. You know, we're talking about e-commerce. We're talking about, you know, having a user make a purchase. Those conventions are really important. So being user-centric is the trick, and that's the focus. And so when we're having conversations with our clients, we're always, as Robin said, we're always trying to bring it back to the goal, which is the user, and the user is a potential guest, not a potential property owner. So it's just important to make that differentiation.
Yeah, and I think it obviously depends what your background is in terms of web development, what kind of websites you've been building, etc. But obviously, something like a website that's aimed at getting bookings is very functional in nature. People are approaching the site with a very functional mindset, as in they're trying to achieve a certain goal, I suppose. They're not just kind of browsing through the website. Usually, anyway, they're not just browsing through the website as a passing the time, like flicking through a brochure. They're wanting to achieve something, and talking about sort of conventions. So, I mean, it's totally silly and easy, but, you know, underlining your links, or using blue links, or making really obvious big calls to actions that are very kind of obvious and easy, and removing all the choices. I mean, everyone sort of knows these things anyway, but, you know, some of the tests, the user testing and things that we've done, it's really clear that it's super important that you understand that these sort of user conventions are things that people rely on. You know, I suppose one of the things, I think we might touch on this a bit later, but one of the things we did once was we put the logo in the middle of the page at the top, the user logo, and then had the menu down below, and we didn't actually have home in the main menu. And then we did some user testing, and people found it difficult to reset their kind of search, to go back to the home page, basically, because they were expecting the logo to be top left, or there to be a home thing in the main menu. And it's kind of silly of us, but it's a sort of lesson learned, something that you don't really necessarily think about. But it was, turns out it was pretty important for people's use of the site.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's absolutely right. You know, and page speed is another important element we found. I mean, increasingly so. You know, the goalpost is always being moved, and when I say the goalpost, I mean, you know, search engines are really judging the websites that are built now on their speed, and they're really fine-tuned. They give different mobile speed ratings versus desktop speed ratings. They give things like first contentful paint, you know, first interaction times. These things are all being used to decide how your site is going to rank. So getting the page speed up will, first of all, help it rank, but secondly, it will increase the chance of a transaction on the website. So it's super, super important.
Yeah, which is where, you know, the size of your images and all that kind of thing is, you know, again, it's really easy to just upload images that are a little bit too big or whatever, but, you know, trying to make sure you optimize them. And there's lots of studies out there, you can Google it, find out, but, you know, how the page speed affects sort of people giving up basically and disappearing. And it can be quite alarming if you compare those sorts of studies with your own website and go and have a look. And it's not very long, 2 or 3 seconds of page load time before people do start to give up on them and just go back to Google and search for something else or whatever. So yeah, page speed is really important, definitely.
That's right. And we've had clients who have come to us and said, you know, I've seen this amazing website. It was so cool. I loved it. And it had this amazing video on it as the first, you know, above the fold, right? There's this big video. And, you know, so we go, okay, great. Yeah, this is the client. This is what they want. We're going to do that. And over time, we actually, you know, looked at the data and said, you know, we've got to remove this video. It's hurting our conversion. And we did. And we used an image and we can, you know, optimize that image. And it was far more effective. So that does happen. And it's, you know, the temptation to do and what you've seen online and because it looks amazing is always there. And especially for me as a designer, I find that all the time. I've got to kind of have these 2 hats on where you're trying to make a beautiful product, but you're also trying to make an effective product. There's always that balance too with page speed. Another convention that in our industry and across our websites that we found to be effective is getting that key search above the page fold. So I've pulled an example here from the Plum Guide. They do this really well. Is that you know, as the page is loading, the decision is to, you know, not only render the key action above the fold, but have it so that even as the page is loading, that key action is rendered first. So those sort of things are really effective too, as a touch.
And even if you only have one property, you know, having one big call to action there that's kind of book now, you know, is the alternative. Or maybe if you have one property, you might just put the availability calendar or something there. So yeah, it's having on the homepage just really the obvious, what's the starting point to make a booking is critical. Another thing that we found, which is quite interesting, is we did a bit of an A/B split test over quite a long period of time with one of our clients, where we actually removed the availability calendars from the property pages and instead just had book now buttons. Now in this website, people could do an availability search across multiple properties and end up on a property page. And what we found was that without the availability calendar on the property pages, and just the book now button, actually conversion was higher. And it runs against the grain of what people are looking for a lot of the time. Web developers or our clients is they want an availability calendar to be on their property page, quite prominent. But in this case, basically they did the availability search at the start from the home page, then clicked through to the book now button, and people that know how Bookster works, it then shows you the calendar, but with your date selected and the prices at that point. But it was just interesting. It was sort of against what we thought would happen, was that actually not having an availability calendar, just having a book now button on that page, it converted higher. So
that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you know, Robin sort of touched on some of these things earlier, so I won't dwell on them too long. But you know, thinking of your logo as navigation, having it top left, having obvious navigation, having contrast on your text. You know, the number of times I see really faint gray text on a white background. Don't do that. Just make sure it's legible. You know, focus on that, and of course, be mobile first thinking when you're designing it. Think of the mobile interaction, because that's being increasingly scrutinized by search engines. The next one is that don't be afraid of change. Change is good, especially with websites. A key point is that they're never finished. They're not sort of carved of wood. They should change. They should evolve. We should launch them. We should come back next month. We should tweak them. We should speed them up. We should optimize them. We should change them. We should be willing to do that. And we sort of have a bit of an ethos here in our company about that and that process. And yeah, that's why we say flirt. We want to be a flirt. We want to flirt with people, which is to get feedback, to listen, to iterate, to review, and to test. So that's what we want to do. We want to have a cycle that happens with all of our products. And I think this is pretty valuable, outside of, holiday rentals as well. This is just the general sort of software cycle, isn't it? So that's something that we think is important. So, the first part of that is feedback. So, getting that feedback can be tricky, but you want to make sure you get feedback from the guest as well as the client. I think normally the first feedback you get is from the client, and that's great, but actually we really want to know what the guests think and what the guests are doing. So, capturing that is important. On you go, Robin.
Just on that initial thing, I was just going to say, setting your client's expectation that, and this, I'm sure this is true for all websites, but when, especially for sort of e-commerce or booking websites, is setting that expectation up where you're saying, look, let's get something out early. I mean, it's just the kind of agile approach, but it's how you make sure that your client knows that it's like, look, we're going to get something out there. We're going to spend a little money, a bit of budget to get something going that's available for people to book. Let's get some feedback, and then iterate on it, and we'll come back to that. Let's set up a thing in the diary for 3 months or 6 months time, maybe when they're next going to be a bit quiet. So, that's the other thing about holiday rentals websites is that typically, although this year maybe hasn't been quite so typical, but typically our clients are very, very busy in like January, February. They're taking lots of bookings, and then through the summer, obviously they're busy dealing with the bookings. Maybe this is different if they're operating a ski chalet or something, but
or the southern hemisphere. Yeah.
But typically you've got like lots of bookings happening at the start of the year, then they're dealing with the booking. So their downtime tends to be towards the end of the year, and maybe between that initial booking phase and the booking, people actually arriving. So that's when you want to sort of try to catch them again and say, look, let's get back to the site and have a look at it again, add some of the things that we talked about, see if we are getting bookings, maybe try to review it at that point and set that expectation.
That's right. Yep. So that's exactly right. So yeah, we get our feedback, we listen to the feedback, and part of that is being willing to abandon the things that we might love about the design or the site for the and in the idea and the goal of making it more effective. So that's the second part, to listen to that feedback. Then we're iterating, we're making the changes and the updates that we've heard from the feedback. And then, as Robin mentioned, we're planning those reviews with our client. We're planning chats. We're planning sessions to evaluate and measure the effectiveness of the website. And then we're also going to test those things that we've then changed. And there's various ways you can do that. We use A/B split testing, although to get a very scientific result from that, you sometimes need a lot of traffic, and that can be tricky with a small business. But there's also user testing, and a major part of this is understanding enough about analytics to be able to make those changes and evaluate them, based on not only how everybody feels and what everyone's opinion is, but also what the data is telling us. So it's important to have that part of it in. And then that's our cycle done. We're back to getting feedback again, and we're starting over. So that's a good thing. And generally speaking, having the idea that a website should change very often is something that I think some clients don't perceive. They think, I'm going to pay for my website up front, and once it's live, that's it, done, and I won't think about it for another 5 years. And that we're trying to change that perception, and we're trying to think, this is an organic thing, and it can change, and it should change.
Yeah, I just on user testing versus A/B split testing. So user testing for us has been super effective, really effective. So you you don't actually need to do that many. So between 3 and 5 user tests. If you we have used usertesting.com. It's really easy to set up. It's not really even that expensive. Can't even remember how much it is, but £60 maybe for 3 tests or something like that. But it gives you loads and loads of great feedback. If you, especially with a site where you're trying to get people to take bookings, basically you can ask the users, you can set the question basically to be something like, try to book your holiday for you and your family, get to the point where you need to put in your credit card details, and just let them go basically and see how they get on, and see, they'll then go through and try and find the right property for them. They'll try and get through the booking process, and the major snags, with three to 5 user tests, they'll definitely pick up the big things that you've done wrong, whether it be made the color of links wrong, or maybe in certain browsers things are being hidden or whatever. So yeah, just 3 to 5 user tests is a great thing to build into if you're building a website for someone. And another point that it was kind of on the guest versus client feedback, was that we get a lot of feedback from our clients where essentially the owner, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier on, but the owners are going onto their website, and they're using the website to try and figure out how many bookings they've got. So our clients are saying to us, look, our owners can't figure out how many bookings they've got by visiting my website. So your UIs are wrong, they're broken. And obviously our UIs are not aimed at owners. And so when someone's clicking through, if a property is just blocked out for a couple of days rather than booked, it might not look right. We don't really show the actual bookings or the dates that are blocked out. It's more about, for us, how the guest is going through that process of trying to find certain dates that are available and the prices. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really work as an interface for an owner trying to figure out whether or not they've got bookings. Mm-hmm. So, obviously Bookster has various tools. You can give owners logins, and there are various tools that we could give owners. But that's a really typical thing that we've found, is that, our website clients come to us and say, oh, our owners are using it to try and do a search, or they're trying to find their own property. So that's the other thing that happens, is they're like, they're trying to find their own property on my website. So we might have built a website that has, 100 properties, and there's nowhere to put in a name search for a property, because why would you? As a guest, you don't really know the name of a property. You just want to put the dates in. So our clients say to us, look, we really need somewhere where you can put a name of a property in and do a search. And you have to persuade your client, look, that's never a use case that a guest wants. That's just getting in the way of what a guest wants to do. So yeah, that's something that, as something we have found is that's a hurdle that we have to cross quite often.
That's true. And another thing to mention is how effective we found A/B split testing. So, specifically one of our sites, we ran a kind of a site-wide test. And the first test we did was just changing the color of our main call to actions. So we just changed them all to blue. I think they were maybe orange. We changed them all to blue. That increased the conversion rate by 10%. Then we also noticed on that same test that on the single property page, we had a main call to action to book, and it was orange and it turned blue. But we also had one that was sticky to the top of the screen. So as the user scrolls, that button comes into view and it's always there and it scrolls with them. And that particular button had 5 times as many clicks as all the other call to actions combined. So that's an enormously compelling bit of information to have, and we got that by doing those tests and by comparing the results and seeing where those clicks were coming from. So it might seem expensive, or it might seem frivolous to use these tools. Like we use VWO, and there's also Hotjar, and there's many other tools that help you run A/B split tests, but they can be extremely effective. So it's just something to think about. The next part is more kind of once the site is built, but building it isn't enough, and this is something we've kind of had to educate our clients on from time to time. I think the perception that now that I've got a website, I'm going to be #1 in Google's rankings, and people are going to find it, and I'm going to get 1,000 visitors and every day, and it's going to be, and it's not. You have to kind of learn to promote that thing, and so part of it is from our part of our process is to make sure our clients understand that once the site is live, even before it's live, what are you going to do to drive traffic to that URL? Are you going to hand out business cards? Are you going to do pay-per-click advertising? Are you going to do social media? Are you going to invest in SEO and create content and perhaps hire a professional to do it? That sort of thing is big. Growing your traffic levels is an ongoing process, and it's not just a one-off process similar to a website. You should come back to it, and evaluate it and try to grow that. And another thing we found is our clients find it to be sort of a black hole. I mean, they just oftentimes have no idea where to start, and that's absolutely fine. But just knowing that they have to engage with that side of the business or hire someone else to do that can be a big hurdle and a big kind of surprise to them, an unpleasant surprise.
Yeah. Also, I suppose in that context, email marketing, for example, they don't always get aware that, maybe they've got, as the time goes on, they might have built up a list of previous clients. And obviously, depending on GDPR and what permission they have, etc., you potentially could be marketing to those clients again. And that's a really easy way to generate bookings back through your own website. And yeah, I think this sort of leaps back to the start of what we were talking about, of the return on investment conversation that you end up having with people. And so although conversion is super important, so you want to make sure that the website can convert. If you don't have any traffic, you'll definitely get no bookings. And even if we don't think it's our job, so if we're not marketing their business or whatever, we will, in the perception of the client, we will shoulder some of the blame for not getting them traffic. Is kind of what we're saying here. Is that and I'm sure this is the same for all web developers in a way. I'm sure it is the same. But yeah, you will the conversation. You're getting some of the blame for something that you probably it's not your job really. But making sure that it's crystal clear that they need a plan. They need to have some way of driving traffic to their site is definitely a lesson learned over the years for us.
That's right. And part of it for us is just saying, that you can do it yourself and maybe come up with a plan. There's plenty of resources out there to help you understand how to be better at that. But the other side of it is deciding whether you want to hire a professional to do it. So these are conversations we often have with our clients, and we just find it helps them understand the big picture. This one's fairly obvious, I think, especially to us. We've been talking about it in our team, but photography is so important for those transactions, and so we won't spend too much time on this. But again, pressing upon your client the importance of investing in that photography is huge. And if they're going, on you go.
Just get someone that's got a lot of kit as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's all. If someone comes to your house with that, then there you go. No, it's but it is a big decision because the temptation to do it yourself is there, and we see it all the time. People come to us and they sign up for Bookster. We're a self sign up service, so they can get started without having to chat with us if they don't want to, and they can upload their photos and they can list their properties and they can do all this without chatting to us. So sometimes we come in halfway through the process and they've already uploaded their photos, and the quality is all over the place, and it's because people have just gone on with their iPhone and they've snapped some photos. So we have kind of a responsibility sometimes to tell them, look, it's going to be difficult to make those sales, that transactions, when you're up against these amazing photography banks on these other websites. So one thing we always impress is quality over quantity. So having 25 to 30 photos is really good. but making sure that those photos are really great, making sure the cover photo especially has been really well considered and is impactful, and then ideally leading, maybe having photos that sort of lead the user through the property, so they go through the front door and they go through the hall and they're into the lounge and then they're into the kitchen and they're into the back. There's sort of a flow to those photos, can sometimes be an effective way to market them as well.
Yeah. One thing that's worth thinking about is that a lot of the time, by the time they get onto your website, or even by the time they see the property on Booking.com or another OTA, but certainly probably by the time they get onto your client's website, typically the websites that we're building or dealing with are in a single location usually. So, in Cornwall, or in Edinburgh, or in Aberdeen or London or something like that. So usually they've done the search already. They're already making a decision or made a decision about where they're going to go on holiday. So you don't necessarily need to be hitting them immediately in the first photos with photos of the Eiffel Tower or photos of the London Eye or whatever. They probably should be about the accommodation. So photos like the one that you can see there, maybe showing bedrooms and bathrooms and things, because actually by the time they get to the single property, they've probably made a lot of those decisions already, that they do want to come to that village, that town, that city. And really, you're trying to convince them about the quality of the accommodation at that point. So that's probably should be the photos at the start of your deck or whatever. The first ones you show them, the living spaces, the bedrooms, things that kind of convince them, oh, it's going to be lovely to stay here while I'm on my holiday.
That's right. That's right. And I think a professional too coming in can have a really a fresh perspective on it. I think sometimes when someone owns, especially if they're marketing their own property that they own, there are plenty of blind spots, and things that they love about it and things that they don't. But having someone like a professional come in and have a fresh eyes and think about how to market it and think about the angles and think about how to stage the property, like these are really important things. So it's really helpful to have a professional. If they are going to DIY it, there are resources out there which we'll go through. I was just thinking maybe we would send them afterwards to everyone who's subscribed if you're interested in reading more about them. But there are resources to help if someone's going to do a DIY. But I think professional photography is certainly becoming the norm. We one of my colleagues, did about a 5-minute search and found some. These are real photos that people are using to promote their properties on OTAs and on their own websites, and it's unbelievable sometimes what you see. And so it may seem silly, but emphasizing the importance of the photography is worthwhile, and conversation that sometimes need to be had. I mean, just getting the orientation of your photo right is pretty simple stuff, really. It's obvious, isn't it? But it's shocking the number of situations out there like this. So and again, like I mentioned, there's plenty of tips and resources out there, so we'll send a follow-up and touch on some of those things if you're interested in some more reading. So with all that in mind, we just wanted to sort of say what we offer as Bookster to integrate with your website. So having online booking on your website is really easy with Bookster. We offer a Book Now button that you can copy paste, update the link yourself. We have an availability calendar that's sort of per property. So as Robin was saying, it allows a guest to scroll through the months and see what's available and actually select some dates and get a price and actually proceed and make the booking as well. Another level up from that is our multi-property search. So that actually works across multiple properties and allows them to select dates, scroll through what's available, and then make their booking. And the next level from there is our API, which allows you to build your own custom user journey, really, using the data that's stored in our system. So those are the ways you can sort of work with us. And that and is there anything I missed, Robin, from that?
I don't think so. I think you've pretty much covered it all. I was just having a look at some of the chat stuff and some of the questions that people have asked. So Clemency has asked, can you explain SSL? I probably can't explain it in great depth, but fundamentally, it's just the connection that's set up between the the person's browser and the host, essentially being a secure connection, and you need a certificate of some description as well to sign that connection so that the person knows that they are connecting to the right server. And I think, as perhaps it was Andrew pointed out, do you have SSL? So yes, Bookster has SSL, and that's an important question to ask of your client, or for basically now. Your website should definitely be on have SSL. That's critically important. Also, is your website mobile or mobile friendly and responsive? Yep. Again, that's very important. That it should be fast in mobile. It should look good in mobile. Maybe mobile first should perhaps be your approach. I think Lyle mentioned that before.
That's right.
Yeah, and particularly important with clients with old websites, users check out of the website using a mobile device. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. People that don't have mobile-friendly websites, Google will rank them lower as well, but also it'll be really difficult for people to use on smaller devices. So yeah, it's very critically important that you get that built in.
That's right.
GDPR is essential. So, I mean, the main thing about GDPR to worry about is that you have consent. If you're going to be sending marketing emails to people, etc., that you have consent to do that. So that can be part of the booking process, or you can have a newsletter sign up. But also, how long are you holding on to people's booking data before you anonymize it? Things like that. Bookster has some settings built in for that too. So yeah, GDPR is something to consider too.
Yep. I was just going to jump in with one here, Robin. I see that there's a question from Nick. What should a target conversion percentage? So that's a great question. It's a tricky one too. If you have, I would say if you have a 1% conversion rate, like that's good. Like that's really good. If you have a 10% conversion rate, that's fantastic. The tricky part is it's a moving bar, and it has to do with inventory, and it has to do with prices, and it has to do with the market in general. So there's all of these factors at play. I think what you want to do is be aware what your conversion rate is, and just always be trying to nudge it forward and nudge it up. And if it's dropping, try to figure out why. It's more just about being engaged with it. And that can sometimes be a daunting thing, but it is just about doing your daily, doing your monthly, and thinking about it and considering it.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that can drive down conversion rate, but actually are potentially quite good for your website. So if you're an avid blogger, for example, you'll be attracting people to the website that aren't really necessarily interested in booking properties. So they'll be on there, they'll be reading about the area, or maybe you write an amazing blog that's just entertaining and funny. So you might find that people end up on that website. That's my phone though, never mind. That people just end up for that reason. Now that might drive your conversion rate down, but that's not actually necessarily a bad thing. So for maybe organic traffic, maybe you shouldn't be so worried about your conversion. If you've got page traffic, pay-per-click traffic, perhaps you should be looking to hit, 3 or 5% or higher, perhaps, because, really those keywords that you're paying for should be the right keywords. So that's probably when you're talking about pay-per-click traffic. That's when you really should be on top of your conversion rate and trying to drive that quite high compared to your overall conversion rate. So yeah, that's maybe my
I mean, and you raised a good point too, Robin, about it's all about understanding where your traffic's coming from, right? So if your traffic levels are increasing and you're making the assumption, it's all going to my homepage, but it may not be. I mean, it may be coming to key blog posts or key content that you're posting, and it's driving it up. And so you might think, well, hang on, I'm getting a lot of traffic to that page. What kind of things can I do? Can I add a search on that page? Can I update that page to drive more traffic through my user journey? So yeah, the first step is understanding where it's coming from, I think. Yeah, that's a good point.
Or something like a blog, maybe capturing newsletter email addresses is a good thing to be doing there, because they may not be in that moment interested in booking, but they're probably or possibly interested in the area or the things you're writing about. So if you can, if you can capture their email address at that point and market to them over time. So something to consider saying to your clients is, you don't want to be capturing email addresses, and putting a sign up to my newsletter thing that flashes up all over your website, but maybe in your blog, you do want to be doing that. So that's maybe something to consider as a good end result of someone reading your blog, is them giving you their email address.
Yeah, that's true.
So this is maybe one for you, Lyle. What do you ask your clients to provide when you're making a website? How much detail? And if it isn't SEO-friendly content, do you feedback on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, ideally, a client would come to me and say, I've really thought about this website that I want to make, and I've drafted up the content that I see on each page. And there's these 10 pages, and this is what I think, and this is what my business is all about. That would be ideal. And every now and then you get an amazing client that's that prepared. And the reality is that a lot of people probably aren't that prepared, and that's okay. But the more content that they can give you, the better. And sometimes it comes to the point where you have to say, look, I don't have enough here to work with. I'm going to build you a website, but it's going to be empty. I don't really know what we're trying to say, what we're trying to sell, because at the end of the day, it is all about the message and the narrative of that unique business. So it's important to provide as much as you can. I don't have a kind of hard line. I say, well, if it's not a document with 1,000 words, I'm not getting started. Maybe I should, I don't know, but the more content, the better. So I would say, if you've at least thought about, I want to have an about page, I want to have a local guides page, I want to have a contact page, I want to have a page for each property, I want to do all this stuff, and you start filling in that content, that's an amazing start. The second part of that question, being SEO friendly content, I sometimes don't. I kind of try to keep my designer hat on, maybe sometimes with that, and refer. In house we have our marketing director Kelly, who's fantastic in that region. So sometimes I kick the can over to her. I will take a look at it and try to kind of, from my perspective, marry it up more with the marketing side of it. So are you saying, this is who you want to be, this is the kind of business you want to be? Are you hitting those keywords? That I probably don't evaluate too much on, but I do send it over, and we look at it as a team, and we consider it as a team. And again, because part of the process is launching the site as soon as you can and coming back to it. So the most important part is to get it out there and get it up there as soon as you can, and then to try to come back to it and increase it and update the keywords and update the content and keep honing in and increasing its rank and increasing its conversion.
Yeah. Another question was about the owner section, or attracting new properties. And I think, on the same website is fine. Just stick it in the footer, basically, would be my advice there, potentially. Yeah, just tuck it away, basically. I'm just having a blast down through these chats. Yeah, Cloudflare or any CDN. Yeah, we use a CDN. I think we use Amazon for general content distribution. But you guys will have your own CDNs that you want to use. What do we use for A/B split testing? Well, we use something called VWO for our split testing. Basically involves sticking a bit of JavaScript in the bottom of the website, and then you can log into VWO and move things around, or update colors, or change things on one test versus another. As I say, or as Lyle said, with A/B split testing, you need a decent amount of traffic to make that work. So either you'll be waiting a long time, a few months to get a result, or if you have a client with some decent levels of traffic, then you can get a result a bit quicker. So we found it really effective on, sites with larger traffic volumes, basically. Let's have it.
That's right. I see another question later there. Is this video going to be available later? Yes, it will be. So we'll post that on our blog probably in the next week or so. So yeah, that's that answered. Not that you want to listen to us chat for this long again, but anyway.
I know. Yeah. Do you have any further details and photos? Well, I think just 25 to 30, etc. But there'll be resources for that we'll post afterwards. So if you aren't sure about any of these elements, be the free audit. Your website needs to monitor page hits, etc. In order to know what is happening. Yeah, I mean, there are kind of audit things as well out there. I'm just having a look right down to the bottom. Yeah, Google likes 300 words per page for algorithmic analysis. So yeah. Yep. I mean, that's us pretty much go through to the end of the chat.
I think there's one more question there that's actually just in the open questions from Clemency. So can you explain what you mean by logo as nav? I'm an owner of a holiday accommodation and not a website designer. Okay, well, welcome. I'm sorry, this must have been way boring for you most of the time. But no, localized navigation, I mean, it should be clickable and it should take the user back to the homepage. That's kind of a web standard. So if you have a website and it doesn't do that, that might be something worth considering. And as Robin mentioned before, we find with e-commerce that left aligning that logo also helps. So rather than having it centered or to the right or somewhere else on the page, having it top left is a convention that seems to be helpful. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, well, I think that might be us coming to the end, I think. So thank you to everyone for coming along. Thank you to Lyle for he did the slides pretty much and the vast majority of the content there. So
that's right.
Thank you very much. And
perfect.
Thanks for coming along.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Look forward to speaking to you all soon.
All right.
Bye.